This is the Biz News Podcast, one-on-one conversations with experts in business and personal development.
Teresa, you have been described to us as an influence expert. What on earth is an influence expert, and how do I get to be one?
Well, a lot of people think influence is something people have or don't have. Influence is, in fact, a skill. In fact, it's one of the most important skills you can have in life, because influence is not only your ability to succeed in business, in your family, it's your ability to get rid of the meatloaf you don't like in your cafeteria, and it's your ability to build really strong relationships at every level in your life. So I have actually boiled it down to how influential people work, the key habits that highly influential people have, and I help everyday, regular, good people learn how to not only build relationship with influential people, but become highly influential themselves.
It sounds like the ordinary Joe on the street could become influential. Am I wrong?
Well, no, everyone already is influential, right? We all have some level of influence that we're starting from. Influence is just, do people know, like, and trust you? And if you made a recommendation on something, would they follow you? Mass influence, then, which is the name of the book that I just published, is in fact the ability of a lot of people to know, like, and trust you.
How do you go about doing that unless you're Donald Trump and you can buy your influence?
Well, it actually is a series of routine habits that highly influential people have. The first and foremost is that when you look at really influential people, they solve a really big problem for other people. They're really of service to others. And in fact, the bigger the problem that they stand in as the solution to it, the easier it is for them to become influential. A great example, consider one of the most influential people of our time, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. He stood in one of the biggest problems going on the planet at the time, racial inequality. And he stood in it in very specific ways, very grassroots ways that people could wrap their head around and get involved in. He did the Montgomery, Alabama bus boycott. He did the march at Selma. They were very distinct actions and easy things for people to participate in. And therefore, they made a huge impact, and the ripple effect was huge.
When you start to work with a client who says, I'd like to become a little bit more influential, what's the first thing you suggest to him or her?
Well, with the students that I work with in my programs, I always start with, are you working in a one-to-many capacity? And, it's so obvious as a habit of influential people that many people overlook it, many people forget to talk about it, many people forget to think about it. But if you're someone who's more of a service provider, if you're a coach, a consultant, someone who offers their services in a capacity of trading your hours for dollars, then you're mostly dealing with people one-on-one. And when you look at highly influential people, they tend to deal with the world in a one-to-many conversation. So the first thing you want to do is look at how can you develop some group work or one-to-many tools in your business. Even if you just start, like a therapist who starts having group sessions increases their influence exponentially overnight just by switching to group. If you start publishing a newsletter or focusing on putting out a blog, even if it's just a few times a month, having a blog talk radio show, for example, those are all examples of one-to-many conversations that you can add to what you're doing in business that will increase your influence rather markedly.
In today's age where everybody has a computer or a smartphone or something where they can get their voice out, presumably to many via Facebook or Twitter or whatever you might think of, aren't all these voices just kind of lost in a great cacophony of noise?
You might think that. And the best way to have that not happen is to be very specific in what conversation you're in. And one of the biggest mistakes that I see people make is that they create a very general business around them, a very general conversation around themselves, because they're worried about alienating or turning certain people away. And the reality is that if you're worried about turning people away, you're probably not of high service to anyone. If somebody's got a brain tumor, they want to go to a brain surgeon. They don't want a general practitioner. People are looking for people who are specialists in specific conversations. So the more you boil it down to something very specific, an acupuncturist won't make nearly as much money as someone who says, I'm a specialist in arthritic pain, or I'm a specialist in fibromyalgia. They will actually attract people far more easily. And, a key thing to think about is that, if a brain surgeon writes you a prescription for back medication, you feel grateful. It doesn't mean that when you declare yourself a specific intention, a specific brand for your business, it doesn't mean that you can't still serve other people. It just means you're declaring what your expertise and what your specialty is.
Sounds both like a bit of marketing expertise is needed and the ability to stand back and look at yourself.
Very much so. Marketing, and word of mouth marketing especially, which is one of the things I teach, is really just, common sense. How do you build powerful relationships with people? Well, the first thing you do is bring them something they really, really need. So the bigger the problem you solve for others, the easier it is for you. And you might call that branding. What is the specific thing that you provide the solution of for the world?
Teresa, how on earth did you start this, get into this niche, for heaven's sakes?
A lot of people are born knowing what they want to do. Some of us just fall into it. And, like a lot of people, they say fish don't know what water is. A lot of people don't know what they're really good at until they have others point it out to them. It was actually through a number of colleagues and friends pointing out to me that, I had people coming at me in droves asking me, things like, Teresa, 3 best-selling books in 8 months. How the heck did you do that? And would you teach me how? Or how did you grow your following so big, so rapidly? And I was coaching and mentoring all these people until, many of them started saying, enough already. Don't you realize you're needing to actually create this as your brand and set this up? So one of the best things you can do is actually go out to people that you help often and ask them what they think it is that you're really good at and what they think the problem you solve for others is. Often other people can reflect who you are back to you far better than you can ever figure it out yourself.
Now, you operate something I think is called Wildfire Workshops. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, Wildfire Workshops is the training company that I own. We have probably about 16 people on our team right now at last count. I have to double check that number. We teach online training programs on how to master the influence game and very specific strategies around how to become a best-selling author, because one of the things that I find really helps people wrap their head around how to become influential is understanding how you would put out a book and put it on the bestseller list through creating influential relationships with people that will help you create energy around your book.
That's more than just inventing a mythical kingdom with the wizards and flying brooms.
Yeah, it really is.
And what about this Evolutionary Business Council you have something to do with?
Well, the Evolutionary Business Council is actually owned by Wildfire Workshops. It is, I would say, the epitome of what I teach. I had developed a large community of influential people that were assisting and helping each other and cooperating with each other. And, one day a number of them approached me and said, Teresa, enough already. You've built this community, and we keep hearing you say that someday when you're influential enough, you're going to create a community of influential thought leaders. It's time you start doing what you teach. And out of that, the Evolutionary Business Council was born. The EBC, as we call it, is a community of emerging thought leaders and thought leaders from all over the world that are committed to teaching the principles of success. And our goal is that success principles, transformational principles, reach 1.2 billion people on this planet by helping 1,200 thought leaders each reach 1 million people in the next 5 years.
That is one heck of a goal. It's hard to wrap your mind around that number. That seems unattainable.
Well, in fact, when you look at the current size of the ABC, we're well on track. The next goal is going to be to get the ABC into other cultures and other languages, because there's a lot of success experts teaching transformational principles. In the English-speaking world, we've barely scratched the surface of penetrating other cultures and other languages. So that's going to be the fun next journey that we stand in.
When you first run into somebody who says, yes, I want to do this, what hurdles do they have to overcome in their own minds to become successful?
Well, one of the reasons I wrote Mass Influence, the book, is that I wanted good people, everyday heroes, to get how easy it is to become influential. Because the reality is most good people, all good people, are hardwired with negative thoughts, self-limiting beliefs. You might call them mind viruses. Randy Gage calls them mind viruses, that stop you not only from becoming successful, but from becoming influential. You might have, I'm not important enough, I'm not smart enough, I don't have enough credentials, nobody's going to listen to me anyway. There's all kinds of variations of inner dialogue that will stop you. And the reality is the only people that are not hardwired with a lot of inner dialogue that would stop them from becoming influential tend to be sociopaths. Sociopaths don't struggle with inner dialogue the way regular, normal, good people do. So when normal, regular, wonderful, everyday heroes don't learn the skill of influence, what's at risk is that we risk living in a society that's run by sociopaths. Yikes. Not the world I want my grandkids to grow up in. So one of the reasons that I created this book was to help study all those good people that have learned to overcome their own limiting beliefs and step into influence, and teach others how to develop those habits so that you can become influential too.
Now, tell our listeners a little bit more about the name of the book again, and where can they get it?
It's Mass Influence, The Habits of the Highly Influential. And you can get it at massinfluencethebook.com. We've priced it at basically printing costs. So if you want to buy the soft copy, it's less than $8 on Amazon. We'll be launching the Kindle next week, and the Kindle will be given away for free. This book is really about helping you step into living your dreams and having the influence to create the life that you want to create. So we also include a 30-day influence challenge, which is a free complimentary program. It's to help you get in action around living these skills. And so when you go to massinfluencethebook.com, you can not only find where you can get a copy of the book, but you can sign up for this 30-day influence challenge. It's quick little 2-minute exercises you do every day to help you solidify the habits.
Teresa, you've been very generous with your thoughts and your time, but is there anything you would like to add that I've not been bright enough to ask you?
I would just say get in action around living your dreams, because living the life of your dreams does take action. Otherwise, you're just dreaming. So learn this skill, because it will serve you in actually creating that life you've always wished for.